FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
Right now, we're honored to be joined by James Hirsen. He's a New York Times best-selling author, a commentator. I know you've seen him on The O'Reilly Factor and Fox and Friends and CNN. James, how are you?
Hey, fantastic. Good to be with you, Marc.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. You published an article about a new super PAC that's got it's got a pretty specific goal. So tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, it's called the Trumpocrats PAC, started by a guy who was a lifelong Democrat named Christian Rickers. But an interesting guy. He was, he's someone who was a Sanders supporter, voted for Sanders in the primary, also as a state office holder in the state of Virginia, appointed by Hillary Clinton's current running mate, Tim Kaine. So he's a bona fide Democrat who has decided, and it's based on really one issue. He's decided to support Trump, to set up this PAC, collect money, work in the grassroots, and try to convert Democrats, if you will, recruit Democrats. The fascinating thing to me is he comes from a town which is a quintessential community, and there are examples of these all over America. This is in Virginia where he grew up. There were 25 manufacturing plants where the majority of jobs were provided for the community. Now there's only one. And so to him, both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump resonated to him, their talk about re-examining trade agreements, so-called free trade agreements, and particularly the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, that Hillary Clinton has supported publicly 40 times, calling it the gold standard, and now claims to be against, and why the content of the Trans-Pacific Partnership has been kept a secret, right, even from members of Congress. So all of these issues that are economically based are the reason that he formed this PAC, and I think it's going to provide a tremendous addition and supplement to the Trump campaign, because it's not Donald Trump's forte, or even the people involved in the campaign, to have grassroots, so-called ground game. And so this guy will perform an aspect of the ground game, and I think that's the name of the game right now for the Trump campaign, is expanding the tent, as you can see by Donald Trump's recent speeches directed to the African-American urban community. And it's borne fruit already. In Florida, there's a poll that, what the media likes to call sometimes a shock poll. It shows Trump with 20% support in the African-American community in Florida, and leading Hillary Clinton by a couple of points within the margin of error. But still, that's a sizable percentage for a Republican. So I think this is part of that outreach in a way.
Well, and, Republican candidates have traditionally gotten maybe 15% of the African-American vote until Barack Obama came along, and obviously that dropped way off. I was talking to Peter Doocy from Fox News Channel about this just a short time ago. He said that the Trump campaign seems to understand that they may not persuade a large number of African Americans to switch over to him, but they're trying to target their message to more of the younger crowd, maybe the millennials who were maybe disaffected Bernie Sanders supporters, and they don't have much passion for Hillary Clinton, and trying to make them realize that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. I think in the African-American community, they're focusing on the jobs and the fact that border security becomes an economic issue in urban areas that have really suffered from the unemployment and from the competition from very low-wage illegal immigrant workers. And I think that message is resonating, judging by the social media and judging by the movement in the polls. The other thing is, it's interesting that Donald Trump has been campaigning with Nigel Farage. He was the leader of the Brexit vote, because Brexit is exactly, in terms of issues and in terms of the kind of outreach that Nigel Farage did in the United Kingdom, it is exactly what the Trump campaign needs to emulate. And that's reaching out to people who maybe have never voted before. That includes millennials, or maybe haven't voted in recent elections. Disaffected Democrats, disaffected independents, and generally people who are either working or want to work. And I think, what changed the world in the United Kingdom were these people in these small mill towns up and down the United Kingdom. There were people like that who had never voted before, and that's how the Brexit vote won, even though they were behind 10 points in the polls. They were up against both major parties, all the broadcast media, virtually every elite institution who tried to scare the voters to death for 6 months. And so I think that's a great model that I believe, particularly Steve Bannon, the CEO of the Trump campaign, is using.
Yeah, well, it sure sounds familiar, doesn't it? When you describe it that way. The guy who launched this PAC certainly didn't start off with a lot of money. I mean, it's going to take some funding to get this done. Does he assume that when this next disclosure report goes into the FEC that there's going to be a ton of cash in there for him to work with?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be a ton, but I think he will have some cash, only because shows like yours have exposed this trumpocrats PAC. They've got a website, trumpocratspac.com. And people, I think there are a lot of people who would have vested interest in promoting this, because there's a very large swath of independents and Democrats who supported Bernie Sanders. And in a way, they didn't support him, I believe, because they really believe in the tenets of European socialism. I think they supported Bernie Sanders for much the same reason young people were supporting Donald Trump, and that is he presented himself as the anti-politician, a guy who wouldn't take the big money. And in that respect, he's the polar opposite of Hillary Clinton, as we know, who takes the big money, who gets endless support from the establishment media, and who has always been a supporter of these globalist trade agreements and of all kinds of overreach with government, and never any concept of border security. What lost in the debate, a lot of people don't realize that Bernie Sanders actually was closer to Donald Trump on the immigration issue than most Democrats.
Yeah, very true. James Hirsen, listen, I appreciate your time. I'll direct people to your website, jameshirsen.com. You can go there and read more about the super PAC that's been put together to try to get some trumpocrats to come over to us. How about that? James, thanks for your time. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mark. Have a wonderful Labor Day.
All right, you too. Thank you very much. Always good to have James on, and that sounds like an interesting approach. And the guy's targeting some of these battleground states. You worry sometimes that the Trump people aren't – I mean, I know they're spending money there now. I've played some of the ads for you that they've got running in some of these battleground states. We don't get to see them here in Missouri and Illinois because neither state's a battleground state, so it's not always – as obvious to us the effort that campaign is making right now to win. But this, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, this poll that has just come out, this one with the talking points memo from Virginia and Iowa, this is pretty fascinating. I'll be honest with you.
Get more at 971talk.com.